Economic Development meeting to order. Madam the Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Palomero.
Here.
Commissioner Baker McCormick. Commissioner Kinlock.
Present.
Commissioner Clementi. Commissioner Baydoun.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Pres-
Chair Hattis.
Present.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next item,
B, Chair's remarks.
I have none. Next item,
C, approval of the November 12th, 2024 meeting minutes.
So moved.
motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carried. Next item,
D, unfinished business. There is none listed.
next.
Item 1, under new business. Board and report on projects and initiatives that were implemented throughout the Wayne County for fiscal years 2021 through 2022 and 2022 through 2023.
If it's all right, we'll take all under one motion. No, we have receive and file, then the approval. Okay. Do we take all the receive and file under one motion? If no objection. Next item,
Item 2, forwarding notification that the Detroit Region Aerotropolis Development Corporation scheduled a public hearing for December 5th, 2024 to consider applications submitted by Christie Land North LLC for an industrial facilities exemption certificate.
any question on item 2? Seeing none, next item, please.
Item 3, forwarding notification that the City Council scheduled a public hearing on November 21st, 2024 regarding a petition to establish a commercial facilities exemption certificate in the area of 2930 Jefferson Avenue.
Any question on item 3? Seeing none, next item, please.
That's the last receive and file.
Okay,
I make a
motion in
motion
order.
to, I make a motion to receive.
Motion
and
been
file
made
item
and
1, 3.
supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next item. The addendum. Oh, yeah.
It's the next action. These
Oh, okay. Item 4.
Item 4, revision of resolution number 2024-729, a 2-year comparable source grant services contract with the Osane H. Sweet Foundation on urban diversity.
Any question on item 4?
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Commissioner McCormick.
are we going to go over item 1 or are you
Yes.
going to go back around?
Yeah,
to it?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's on the agenda. Okay, next item. We voted?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
Next
on
item,
item
please,
number
yes.
4 now.
just
Yeah.
read 4.
yeah.
Discussions and
Motion, yeah,
You just asked for a discussion.
yeah,
You want to take all the action items.
yeah.
So we can move on.
Oh, yeah, we we took that. Oh, yeah, we took that. Yeah, next item 5.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, next item.
Item 5, revision of resolution number 2024-739, a 3-year comparable source grant services contract with Give Merit, Inc.
Any question? In none, all those who are, yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where is this? What are they developing? I know who the vendor is, but it doesn't say where, or at least I didn't see what this park is or where it's being developed. It's $2 million for sports and recreation, which I totally support, but I just like to know where it's at.
Good morning.
okay,
Good morning. Hustle Sheikh, Director of Economic Development. So you're looking at the Merritt Park project. This was previously approved already. This is in the city of Detroit. And specifically, if you look at the address, it's on 100 Grand River Avenue. I believe that is Chairwoman Bell's district. Correct? Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
okay. Yeah, now, Okay, if there are no other question, we move to the addenda, please.
Moving to the addenda, item 7, requesting commission approval of modification 7 to a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the 2019 Annual Action Plan.
Any question on that? Seeing none, we move to item 8.
Item 8, requesting commission approval of an 18-month subrecipient agreement with Samaritas to receive the 2023 Emergency Solutions Grant Funds to administer the programming of the Wayne County Family Center through the county's 2023 Annual Action Plan with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Any question on item 8? Commissioner Anderson.
It's associated with this, but I just wanted to find out if there's anyone here that could speak to my understanding. There is proposed development in Inkster to replace this family center that's on the Eloise property, correct? There's a project that has been talked about and in the city of Inkster for quite a while, and for at least 2 or 3 years. And I just wonder where we're at on that. If there's, and I apologize, it's not exactly what this agenda item is, but it's related. They're supposedly planning to build a new building there. And I'm anxious to see it happen because I know it's really
An
needed.
Eloise property, you said?
It would replace the services that are right now on the Eloise property
replace,
for
okay.
the
Okay.
family services.
Okay.
Hudson Shake, Director of Economic Development.
Stephanie Case, Community Development.
Wanna-
So we're still reviewing the plans to move the family center. It still is at the Eloise Center. So we're still reviewing the plans and trying to consider what's the best alternative at this point.
So you're saying the development, I think it was proposed for Inkster Road, if I'm not mistaken.
It has been proposed for two different locations. So we're still reviewing that to make sure what's the best alternative at this point.
Okay, but eventually we will be moving the services to the new facility.
That's still under review.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Clemente?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry about this, but got away from me. Number 7, I'm noticing that we are reallocating funds, the unused funds from the city of River Rouge. I'd like to know what happened there, because that is my city and it's going to it's going to Inkster.
Sure.
Have you spoken with them? They're not using it for community plant? And yeah, if you could just kind of give me.
Sure.
idea
What
what's going
happened
on.
was they received a grant from Eagle
Mhm.
to demolish the ice rink. So they could not utilize the 246,000.
So this is $357,335.
Correct. So the part of that came from Inkster that had a demolition, and then it finished the demolition. They did like 53, so we're taking the money from the Inkster and River Rouge. I'm sorry, E-Course and River Rouge, and reallocating that to the Dozer Center.
So both E-Course and River Rouge both have unused funds that they did not use? And
Yes.
they're both aware that
Correct.
you are reallocating their money?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not aware of that, so I wanted to be aware of that. So it doesn't state E-Course in here, it just says River Rouge going, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other question? If none, I think motion be in order.
I will make a motion to move items 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not 6. My apologies. 4, 5, 7, and 8.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose, motion carries. Next item, please.
Moving back to the agenda, item 6, discussion regarding the Wayne County Housing Commission.
Okay, we have the presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again, Hassan Sheikh, Director of Economic Development.
Good morning, Mark Crane, Deputy Director of Economic Development.
DeLorean Holmes, Economic Vitality Division Director.
We appreciate everybody here for allowing us the opportunity to talk a little bit about the potential of this Wayne County Housing Commission. As we all know, there's a need for housing across the county. There's a couple of real estate agents on this committee as well, and or who have experience, who know and understand over the last couple of years, it's been difficult for folks to find affordable housing. It's difficult for folks to find housing as a whole, as well as when we're looking for development to come into the county. It's imperative that we have a good housing stock to provide for folks, because that's something that they look at when you're coming in. We've also had reach outs from communities, from the downriver communities, from Livonia, from others that have needs for housing developments and resources for those developments as well. There's always been a priority for housing since Mr. Evans has come into office. And I know it's been a priority for many folks on the commission as well, having numerous one-on-ones with all of you. We are now in a space where we can move forward and, prior to where we were before, now we have a AA bond rating. We're in a place where we can actually activate and move forward and optimize the opportunity to stand up a housing commission. Many counties across the country that are essentially placed as Wayne County is as the gateways to economic development for their state, have a stood up housing commission. After much thought, research, conversations, in order to help us address the housing needs that are there, that are apparently there, that everyone knows that are there across this county, the best way moving forward from our advisement and from our opinion here at Economic Development is to stand up a housing commission. The first step is to appoint a board, which got us here today. We had provided some board members that we had recommended, and then it was brought to our attention that, folks want more information on what the Housing Commission is, which is fair, and we would love to do, and we actually plan to do. This allowed for us to jump early into the plans, and that's why we're here today, as a discussion item to talk to you all about what a housing commission is, what the vision is, what the goals are with the housing commission that we're hoping to stand up here with partnership with the commission. For today's purposes, we're going to go through a vision. We're going to do a little overview of public housing. We're going to talk about what a housing commissioner is, what their roles are, what the responsibility is, as well as talk about the staff that we have on hand and our plan, and how we're going to make sure that this is done in the correct way with staffing, as well as experience that will be provided to a potential board that will be appointed. On page 3, the vision. The vision is to operationalize the Public Housing Authority for Wayne County to receive more federal support to provide quality, affordable, and workforce housing throughout all of Wayne County. The Housing Commission opens up doors to funding that otherwise is not available, dollars that are specifically allocated just for housing commissions. The Public Housing Authority will be the anchor for a new housing strategy that helps us bring thousands of new units from homes to apartments across Wayne County. And we've talked about this either in individual capacity as well as with this board as we were approving other items that went through revenue replacement of the purpose of approving affordable housing pieces. It's towards a larger strategy and goal towards opening up our avenues and ability to go after other pots of money and funding to invest into housing as a whole across the county. The commission recently approved funding for 4 projects that included more than 300 units of affordable housing. We have more in your queue that are going to be coming in the next upcoming months. But the commitment to housing, it must be satisfied in the sense that we must utilize everything that's at our disposal at this moment, and our ability to not only go after dollars, but provide strategies and avenues for affordable housing, attainable housing, workforce housing, and housing as a whole. This is something that will be a positive for every community, regardless if you're a Grosse Ile, or regardless if you're in Northville, regardless if you're in Inkster, regardless, wherever you are in the county, a housing commission will be beneficial to you. And every community will have different housing needs, which this commission will be able to address from a development standpoint. When we were looking at what it means for a housing commission, many folks pointed us towards, and from our research, it brought us to Montgomery County in Maryland. Montgomery County in Maryland, in this space, when you're talking about it, is the litmus of what a housing commission can do, should do, and has been able to do. The housing, the housing authority in Montgomery County, it's the largest owner and operator of high quality, amenity rich, affordable housing. The agency serves more than 20,000 households throughout a various amount of innovative housing programs as well. As Montgomery County designated PHA and HFA, the Housing Authority develops housing, provides mortgage financing to developers and first-time home buyers, manages various rental units, administers rental subsidy programs, including the voucher programs, and provides counseling and support services, which is an education piece for folks. And that's in line with the vision that we're looking at of trying to stand up here for Wayne County. Next slide, please. It's financed over more than 4,000 affordable units for other developers. It currently has a pipeline of 13 projects on stages for the development process from design to construction. When you're looking at the programs that the Montgomery County operates, a couple that stand out to us that would be helpful here in Wayne County are Housing Production Fund, the Housing Stabilization Program that they operate, supportive services and financial credit counseling. There are many folks across this county, across the state, across the country that need these services that first-time home buyers, for myself even, when my wife and I, when we were first starting up our family, looking to buy a house, there were many things that we didn't know. And I work in the economic development space. So a lot of these resources are needed to help guide folks when they're trying to get into a house and more importantly, stay in a house. Power of attorney issues, as well as closing cost assistance programs. These are all important items that will not only help folks get into a house, but will allow for us to also provide spaces for developers to come in, develop housing, drive folks here into the county, but also when folks are looking to invest in terms of bringing their businesses, their factories, their entities and institutions here into the county. Number one question, okay, well, where are my staff? Where's my workforce going to live? We can help provide a pathway forward for that. Next slide, please. When you're looking at, Montgomery County and by the numbers, they have 17 properties in their portfolio, over 10,000, almost 11,000 units that are existing in their pipeline. Their acquisition cost was around $426 million. And the total cost for them has been $1.4 billion approximately, right? By contrast, all the public housing authorities across the county have no more than 4,000 units in their control. We have double the population of Montgomery County, and they have more than double the amount of units that are existing for them. And, for us as Wayne County, looking, again, addressing the needs, looking at how we want to move forward, this is a clear-cut pathway towards addressing these needs. With that, I'm going to pass it over to DeLorean to walk us through the next portion.
Yeah, good morning. So briefly, and you can get to the next slide. So for the public housing overview, we just want to talk about, in 1937, the federal government, decided permanent public housing needed to be funded. And with that, through different iterations, HUD became a department. State laws establishes public housing authorities and, the powers and what they can do. So the purpose of housing commissions are to provide decent, safe, sanitary rental housing for low-income families. And it's something that over the last few years kind of evolved into hybrid ways that commissions can make it serve housing across the entire spectrum and just not low income by utilizing the cash value of vouchers and developments. So ownership, these properties would be owned they're owned by the federal government, funded by federal government, but owned by the Public Housing Authority. So these are properties that the Public Housing Authority wouldn't be able to sell or get rid of without HUD's approval. And part of that would actually be those funds being used for new public housing projects. A recent example of this was kind of the project that happened over in Brewster in the Brush Watson area that was sold. Financing for public housing authorities come from federal subsidy based on operating capital, special purchase, and rental income from tenants and grants. And I'll get a little deeper into that in 2 slides. So next slide, please. So this is just another overview of some other baseline things that housing commissions and public housing agencies can provide. Residential services, these services could go back to like financial credit and counseling, mortgage purchase programs, adult education and workforce, down payment assistance, as well as rental-based units. Next slide, please. So for the annual contribution contract, this is a mechanism for receiving HUD funding that only PHAs are allowed to get. The ACC provides the terms and conditions between the PHA and HUD with all the rules and guidelines. And HUD and the PHA's authorized officials enter into the consolidated annual contribution contract plan. With this, you also have to do an annual plan and a 5-year plan for the PHA. So I briefly wanted to go into like how calculations for HUD annual contributions are calculated. And it depends on, you know, the specific programs being funded by the PHA. So is there public housing operating funds, the public housing capital fund, or the housing choice voucher program? And each funding stream uses a unique funding mechanism based on CAS vouchers and operating costs to depend on how much that PHA would get from HUD during the annual contribution contract planning and agreement.
So what I'd like to do is, and we can go to the next slide, is to talk a bit about the housing commissioners, the appointment process that we're seeking to go through now, and really to talk about the critical role that these commissioners play in terms of governance, strategy, and oversight. And it's, you know, these critical roles are the reason it's so important that the commissioners are appointed early. So state law dictates rather the composition of the board of directors. And the members, the appointments are made in line with other commissions and boards through the county executive's office. Federal law does dictate that the board have at least one resident of Wayne County housing. Because we wouldn't currently own any housing stock as a commission, we're exempt from that requirement at the outset of this. However, as the commission acquires properties, we would implement that requirement. And beyond that, the goal is to fill the commission with folks with a range of experiences in the housing and development space. So if we can go to the next slide, and this is, you know, of course, the commission understands that the role of the Housing Commission Board is strong governance, leading to strong financial oversight to ensure the long-term sustainability of the commission, so that ultimately more families are served, right? And there's an accountability to the residents ultimately that this Housing Commission Board has. So when we talk about the board's components, of course, generally speaking, leadership of the Housing Commission, providing the sort of strategic direction and ensuring that, of course, critically that there's financial solvency. And then, of course, being willing to speak up regarding any concerns in the oversight of the management of the commission. Their oversight roles, of course, include statutory, regulatory, and contractual compliance, all the financial oversight that you would anticipate, budgeting, reviewing documents, corrective actions, et cetera. And then also overseeing the performance of the commission to make sure that this entity is actually serving its purpose, doing so effectively, and utilizing the resources responsibly. So when we talk about, we can go to the next slide, what the commissioner should know, there are several sort of categories of information that the commissioner should know. Of course, their roles and responsibilities that are defined for them. Also, you know, deeply understanding the governing laws of the commission, the regulations that govern the commission, and the ACC that DeLorean was speaking about earlier, which is so critical to the funding of the commission. The agency's mission and history, you know, these general background about the commission and being able to be advocates for it. The financials, of course, knowing intimately the financial condition of the commission, understanding the programs that we run and the basics of those program requirements, understanding the inventory that the commission has, the agency's properties, and then, of course, obviously being able to be responsible to the meetings and procedures and requirements of the commission. So, nearing the end here, when we talk about the commissioners, we can go to the previous slide. There is, of course, an important relationship here with HUD, right? They interpret the laws that govern this, they define and enforce the regulations, and ultimately they determine the level of resourcing that the commission will receive through the ACC and distribute those funds. Long-term, the commission board would empower an executive director and their staff to oversee the management, the day-to-day management of this housing commission, and then also provide a feedback loop to the board of commissioners so that they can maintain their oversight responsibilities. And lastly, we wanted to just note that the commissioners are not receiving any compensation from this appointment. And this is, of course, by good practice, but also a requirement of the ACC, the main funding mechanism for the commission.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, DeLorean. So moving to the last part, well, who's going to help make sure that this gets stood up, and who's going to be responsible for that? Internally on our staff, you've met Mark, you've met DeLorean, just talking a little bit about their experience in the housing space. So Mark is our deputy director at the Economic Development Department. He comes with, he's a 10-year executive director for local community development organizations. In 2023, he's the Community Economic Development Association of Michigan's Leader of the Year. 2023 Prosperous Detroit Neighborhood Hero Awardee, incorporated one of the Detroit's first community land trust. He's a former board member at Detroit Justice Center, leading their technical assistance provider for a community land trust model in Southeast Michigan. And he's a significant experience in affordable and supportive housing. We also have DeLorean, our Director of Economic Vitality, with over 10 years experience across the public, private, and nonprofit housing sectors. Previously in the West Region Development Director, City of Detroit Housing Revitalization Department lead. This is the public-private partnership team assigned to council districts of 1, 2, 6, and 7 in the City of Detroit. This resulted in over 25 LIHTC awards, over $400 million of housing projects, and over 1,000 units of affordable housing units in the City of Detroit. He served as the chief of staff for a ranking member on the Senate committees for transportation, economic development, and international investment in banking and financial institutions. So just on our internal staff, we have the structure and in these two, but as well as from dedication from our broader staff as well, the knowledge on housing, as well as the know-how and the context, the networks, the understanding of where we want to go with this, and the right people in place on the internal staff. Next, we've brought in, if we can go to the next slide, TDA Consulting. It's a nationally recognized small minority and women-owned business. It was founded in 1998. Their staff includes leading experts on housing policy, program design, and implementation, including the use of both state and local funding sources that are often combined with both HUD and LIHTC financing. One thing about TDA, any commission or any project that they've worked on is a project worth discussing. Montgomery County is one of those examples of a project that they've helped stand. The key personnel that are going to be assigned to us are all very impressive. Kelly Vickers is a TDA senior consultant. She's going to be the team lead for us here at Wayne County. She has an emphasis on affordable housing finance. She has over 15 years of experience across the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. She's worked in the City of Detroit, as well as been involved in overseeing 100% increase in affordable housing production over 5 years. She was recognized by Crain's Detroit Business in 2023 as 40 under 40. She has extreme knowledge and experience with this. Stephen Latham is also one of the leads on this, as well as having a extensive background on this, and we can provide you more information on who these individuals are that are working with them. But every individual, Peter Hughes, Jennifer Alpha, these are individuals that are going to be working on the team that are specifically allocated for Wayne County, all have extensive backgrounds working in affordable housing space, former high-ranking members at HUD, know how to make this work, have done it successfully over and over again. And then TDA Consulting is also known as the best in in this space by others that are also working in this space. And we've been able to bring them on, and they will be helping us move forward in terms of what we need to do. This takes us to the last piece, which would be the first step of approving recommended board members for the commission, which then would be able to be given buy-in as we work closely with this body and the Wayne County Commissioners to not only take a look at what needs to be updated, whether it's ordinances, what the structure needs to look like, what the strategy needs to look like, and then we worked in close tandem here with this body. Our goal is to work hand in hand with the commissioners, not in any other way. And we want to make sure that we're working closely together with this body, with the commissioners as a whole. The recommendations for that for this initial body would be myself, being the lead of economic development. Elizabeth Armitage, who is from Michigan Central, also oversaw a lot of affordable housing and projects in the city of Detroit. Harlan Nimmo, who's our deputy director, HHVS. We also look at housing as a health crisis and making sure that we're keeping that overlap there. Ian Conyers, former senator who worked closely and extensively on a lot of affordable housing and housing initiatives at the state level, brings his background and brings his knowledge as well as his ability to navigate these items. And then Commissioner Jonathan C. Kinlock, who oversees Ways and Means, as well as sits on the Economic Development Committee, as well as been involved in other housing initiatives. So that would those five, and would be a body of five, would be that is the recommended initial first step that was provided to us by that said in terms of where and how we want to move forward. This will be the first step, and then navigating through the waters after that as we get the body together, then working closely with this commission body as well as with our staff to make any updates and any changes and anything that needs to be done to make sure that this body is stood up in the best way possible for residents of Wayne County and future residents of Wayne County. With that, I'll open it up to this body for any questions that anyone might have.
Any question for Mr. Shea? Glenn and Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, or Mr. Chair.
Be careful.
Sorry, be careful. Sheikh, I just wondered if you could tell us where the money for the executive staff and the other operations, where that money comes from. Is that an allocation that the board or the commission would make to this new department?
Well, first and foremost, the actual board, as we mentioned, they don't get compensated. It's just like setting up the BRA, EDC, CDE. When it comes to our staff and our actual staff, I'll pass it over to Delora and talk a little bit more about the financing.
Yeah, so a good portion of like the operating financing and stuff is something that would all be discussed and negotiated with HUD under the annual contributions contract, where we would be able to receive funding for operations.
So all of the funding would be coming from the federal government to pay for those positions?
I don't know if I'll speak and say all of it, but a good majority of it would be.
Okay. Do we have any idea of what the operational cost would be to manage this whole program?
So at the current moment, that's part of what we're looking at with bringing in on TDA, helping stand this up and taking a look at what initially what we need to do and what the initial 1-year plan is and what the 5-year plan is and what we're trying to build towards. So as we work through that, through the strategies, through the plans, we'll make sure to continue to provide updates to this body in terms of where we're at.
And I know this is probably something that comes further down the line about the project approval process. I guess what I'm wondering is how all 43 communities would benefit from this and have equal access to submitting projects.
Yeah, so this would be something that would be countywide, right? And this would be something that the goal is to service all the county. So not a single community would be left behind.
Okay, so they would have equal
Absolutely.
access to submit
Absolutely.
projects.
Absolutely.
And I know there are certainly some communities that are in greater need than others. That's goes without being said. But and I think this is something that's probably very overdue, to be in a county of this size. But yeah, I will be wanting to see the process, you know, how these approval process is going to be handled, who's going to be appointed to different positions. And but anyway, okay, I think that's all my questions right now, but I appreciate you bringing this forward.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Conlock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There will be, as what I would anticipate, some initial funding that would be requested from the commission. And the commission will absolutely have a role and say in how those initial fundings will be allocated. Also, I'm talking to the executive as well as to Hassan, the developing of the housing plan will also be something that will be in conversations with this commission, particularly through working closely with the Economic Development Committee. And so this is something like you just said, that's definitely needed. But the commission will have an ongoing, as Mr. Sheikh said, ongoing connection and partnership with this housing commission. Yeah.
And Commissioner Kinlock, I appreciate those words, just to kind of give a little more extent. So when it comes to initial funding, we've already seen, like I said earlier in the presentation, there have already been affordable housing projects that have come forth in front of you. And when you're talking about a larger housing initiative, when we were presenting those projects to you, we discussed that there's a larger plan in place that we're trying to put together. We plan on working closely with this body, with the commissioners, with specifically Economic Development Committee, as we come to you all to put that together. Initial funding, we will be looking, and we've talked about that as well in terms of setting some dollars aside that can go into making sure that we're helping stand this up, and then in the future making sure that we're going after HUD as well as other funding sources that are only allowed you're only allowed to go after if you have a public housing authority, and that has been discussed with everybody at this table in private as well as in public meetings as well, and we're starting to activate. And I know there's a lot of conversations, you talked about A, B, and C. When is it happening? Well, we're here. And we're in the process of now moving things that we've been talking about. And it takes a long time of research. It takes a long time of looking into things, making sure we're doing things the right way. We like to make sure before we bring things before this body that it's at a point where we feel comfortable and strong that this is the best way moving forward. And that's why we're here in front of you today, because we are of the mind that this is the best way moving forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Palamera.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. My questions are along the lines that Jonathan just raised. So right now, there is no line item allocation in the budget for the Housing Commission. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And it's anticipated that once approved, there will be a line item in the budget. And do you have any ballpark figure for what that might be and where the money might be coming from?
Yeah, I'll take that one. As of right now, we don't have a ballpark figure, and that was the biggest part of us bringing on TDA to help us figure that out of what a housing commission this size would, one, be able to get from HUD annual contribution contract. So in a majority of cases for operational expenses, HUD typically does about 70% for PHAs. So we don't know right now roughly how many vouchers are being missed or what any of that will look like. So over the next couple of months, TDA will be on board to help us do the actual research to figure out what's the actual staffing needs would be, what our contributions from HUD would look like, and whatever gaps would be there.
Okay, and maybe this goes to Felicia. When will we be seeing this on an agenda, more than a presentation, but to approve?
Through the chair to this honorable body, so staff, specifically my office, is still researching this matter. Just for a little background, so the county currently has an ordinance that creates a housing commission. That ordinance was adopted in 1994. Based on some basic research, we know that in 94, appointments were made to the board, and there appeared to have been some level of action. In the years after 94, there was a lot of housing activity by the county. However, it's not clear to what extent the Housing Commission was involved in that. So we're looking at an ordinance that's 30 years old. I've reviewed it. I believe it needs to be updated. And so while I appreciate the administration's position that the best way moving forward is to appoint the board, I have some concerns with the way the ordinance is written. I think there has to be a discussion regarding this board's oversight and power. There appears to be in the current ordinance some delegation to the CEO that I need to make sure everyone's in agreement with before we reconstitute this board. I also reviewed the state law that I believe is the basis for it, and I have some concerns regarding, again, the ordinance and the way forward. So I have several questions. And so it's not for me as simple as saying appoint the board, because appointing the board means that we're reconstituting the body as a whole. And so I just haven't had an opportunity to have that time to do that level of research. We've tried over the last few days, because I know this is important to the administration, to do some of that. But it's going to take more digging, because if you had a housing commission and you had boards, why did it stop? Was there a lawsuit? Was there a liability issue? Was it not practical? And then if you look at the state law, we're talking about a countywide housing commission. How many communities in Wayne County have their own housing commissions? And if they have housing commissions in their communities, what level of activity can Wayne County do? It appears, according to state law, you may have to have an agreement with those housing commissions. Are there agreements currently in place from way back when that are still active, that maybe still exist that no one's aware of? Do we have to enter into new agreements? There appears to have been, at the time that the Housing Commission was created, some language about staffing and an agreement regarding staffing. Does that agreement, is that agreement still effective? What did that agreement say? We haven't had a chance to pull that information. So there are just a lot of outstanding questions. So Commissioner, in all fairness, I don't know how long it's going to take us to do that research to get to that point. Now, if this body says move forward with the appointments without all of that, without understanding the landscape, we can do that. But at this point, from our perspective, I'm simply not ready to move those appointments forward until we get additional information and questions. We're working diligently to do that, but I do not have a time frame at this moment.
Are all those issues that you raised going to be addressed by commission staff? Or are some of those questions going to be answered by the administration? Or are you going to divvy them up in terms of, because that seemed like an awful lot of work that you just described to find out.
So when these were submitted, no information was provided, no background, no history, no anything. So we would like to work collaboratively with the department, and maybe once we have our first meeting, we can figure out some of those questions. But quite frankly, a lot of those records rest with the commission. So it would be upon commission staff to understand the history and see if there was a lawsuit. Did we rescind it? You know, all of those various things. A lot of that will be done by us. And while I know Corp Counsel will be assisting, there will be some things that I will also confirm and verify myself. I think it'll be a collaborative effort, but it will be an undertaking on behalf of commission staff.
Thank you.
So if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
And just I want to give my hats off to commission staff, to Felicia and her team. And, you know, we appreciate all the work that they're putting in. We understand that this is an endeavor. This is not an easy lift for administration staff and or for commission staff. We're committed and dedicated to working closely with you all and making sure that we get to where we need to get to. And that is the way we envision this, moving side by side, hand in hand, and getting this stood up together. That's the way it's going to actually happen and work. I understand that there's a lot of concerns from the historical aspect, where I would like to just, you know, if I may, as we move forward, a lot of these items, we've brought TDA in that is going to help us kind of address some of these concerns. We're looking at hopefully getting a meeting set up as soon as possible to address any legal concerns or anything that may be coming from commission staff side as well. The first step, you know, in terms of moving anything forward is to you know, move that board for approval, so we can actually start then taking things there. And if for example, something needs to be addressed or changed, and if it's a standing body that's already there, then we have a body we can take it towards and adjust any ordinance or anything of that nature. So that was our thinking. But at the same time as well, we understand that there's concerns, and we're willing and looking forward to just working in whatever way we can to get this moving forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Baydun.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Hassan is a real estate broker. This is welcome news to see efforts to increase housing opportunities throughout Wayne County. I got a couple of questions. I know in the city of Dearborn, we have a housing commission. As a matter of fact, we have a couple buildings that are they were subsidized and funded by HUD, but the city of Dearborn manages these buildings, and it's income-based, obviously. Are we gonna team up with the local cities? What if, for example, I'm gonna take Melvindale, for example. I don't think they have a housing commission. So will we require each city to set up their own housing commission so we can work with them together on that?
I'm gonna pass this over to Mark and or DeLorean to talk a little bit more about, but I'm very familiar with the authority you're talking about, having been in leadership and economic development
Yes.
in the city of Dearborn in the past, where, you know, I oversaw that housing authority in the city of Dearborn as well. You know, so with my experience taking a look at that was HUD funded, and there was a lot that was there. But one thing when we were managing it, you know, and overseeing it, there were a lot of gaps. Then we talked about it a lot, that we wish there was another organization that could come and help us move in. And this was when I was working at the municipal level. So I've seen the need at the municipal level because I've overseen the housing commission at a municipal level for the city of Dearborn. And I understand and know where the gaps are at the city levels. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Mark to talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, just to your point, I think we have identified maybe upwards of 20 different public housing authorities in the county that are all at varying stages of functionality, some completely defunct, some managing minimal units. So our goal with this housing commission is to be completely additive, for the commission to work in a way that benefits each individual community the best way possible. I think and this is relevant to your question, but to some of the earlier questions, how the commission does that is really dependent on the commission's overall strategy, which we can only take so far as a staff before actually having commissioners on board. And there were questions about the funding potential of the commission that are really only able to be answered once those top line strategic decisions are made. And then this staff and our consultants, who, as we mentioned, are the best in the country, can help operationalize this thing in a way that, again, benefits every community.
Okay, as a follow-up question, some of these opportunities will be for potential tenants, newlyweds that they're just getting married, they can't afford to buy a home. So they will have the opportunity to go in as tenants in these facilities, correct?
So we're anticipating a number of different housing typologies. We anticipate that the commission will be able to help with rental units. We anticipate that the commission will be able to help with affordable for sale units as well. So there are a number of different programs that this commission will allow us to unlock. Okay.
So in other words, let's say there's a piece of land in Melvindale and it's ideal to develop 200 units, for example. Are you looking for private partnership to build this project, or will the Housing Commission in Wayne County, along with Melvindale, co-own this property, this project, and manage it? Or are we gonna reach out to private partnership? Because do we need to hire more staff from Wayne County to run a 200-unit building? For example, I'm just thinking outside the box here.
So, please, Larry.
No, yeah, I was going to say, so one of the reasons we use Montgomery County as an example is they actually have it where it is all owned by the Housing Commission, but they have, for example, a minority developer or someone who's an actual housing developer who helped them do the capital stack and gets the company to do leasing and management and maintenance. So from there is the Montgomery County, they do operational oversight of the commission, the vouchers, financing the deals, making sure they're in areas that are susceptible to HUD, but they don't hire like property management staff.
Okay, very excited. I will fully support this initiative, and I will extend my real estate experience to help you in this endeavor.
That's very much appreciated, and we will take you up on that, Commissioner Baidoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too, as a realtor, I understand the critical need for housing in Wayne County. The question I want to clarify, have you actually reached out to the housing commissions in the various communities that are functioning?
We've started outreach. We definitely plan, I mean, we have an entire sort of community engagement strategy. Again, it was, this staff's opinion, the executive's opinion that appointing the commissioners was the right first step before starting that level of public engagement. But yeah, in no ways did we plan to, again, sort of step on the toes of those existing authorities.
Yeah, because I would like to know what their sentiments are and how, you would collaborate with them. And if there is a need for another layer, could we not just collaborate with them?
We absolutely can. And we'll just say there's more than, 50% of the county's communities that don't have an authority, period. So there absolutely is a very apparent gap. In terms of collaborating with them, we would. One of the ways that this commission will be best positioned is to help all the local communities better distribute the vouchers that they're currently receiving. So we see now public authorities for local municipalities receive vouchers that they either don't spend or that they end up sending to another municipality anyway. And this commission would be well positioned to help make sure that that's done equitably.
Okay, and I guess I'm questioning whether we need another layer or another department, I guess, or this commission to help with that. Could your department do that without adding all of the nuances here?
I'm gonna say no, because we're not a public housing authority.
That
And
is,
from like HUD and with the ACC to actually do it.
so when you add.
Well, what I mean is I know you're not an authority but from what you do already, and if you partnered with the local communities, is it
So,
not
No.
something you can do together? That's what I'm asking.
No, so as an economic development department, not a public housing authority, we don't have the ability to help with vouchers or anything of that nature. That's outside of our ability. Only housing authorities are able to do that. And because we are not one at the moment, we are not able to do that.
So if you work with a housing authority in a community to help them, you're saying you couldn't work together.
I
to do
think that
That's the question.
Your point is definitely well taken, and
Okay.
our plan is to work with those communities to maximize as much as possible. I think one of the key points to take from the Montgomery County presentation is that in a county roughly half the size of ours in terms of population, they're managing twice as many publicly owned units. And the reason is because they've established this commission that is doing that central coordination.
Okay.
Thanks,
The
Mark.
other question I had, so the approval of the board, funding, projects, all of that, would that come to the Economic Development Committee for approval once this commission is set up, or would it just run without any approval from the commission?
So when it comes to the structure, right, first you have the authority, just like with the BRA, the EDC, they approve over there. We'll be working with staff and with this body as well to kind of see what the best structure is going to be in terms of the approval processes, working with TDA to see how the other commissions have it set up. But, we would like to make sure that whatever the best structure is to set up is what we're going to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Go. Okay.
Felicia?
Through this, through the chair to this body, so the Housing Commission would be its own separate board. So while this body will create it and provide some level of structure through your ordinance, which probably should be reviewed and updated, and you will make the appointments. And I'm not even sure we agree about the appointment process at this point, just to put it out there. But then the actual agreements, the projects, they're not coming here. I think that defeats the purpose of the Housing Commission. If you look at their powers under state law, they can borrow, they can buy, they can sell, they can mortgage, they can deed, they can do a lot of things. Maybe in the name of the county, maybe not. We need to have some discussions, but I believe a lot of that activity in the point of a board, it wouldn't come to you. So if they will not be similar to every other board like the BRA or the EDC. You don't see anything. As you know, we seek finances from, well, I won't do that. But yes, no, to answer your question.
Yeah, and
Okay.
just to that point, I mean, I think that our staff has been incredibly responsive to the report requests from commission over this last year as we've actually rebuilt the staff and had the capacity to do so. As Director Shake mentioned earlier, we have the utmost respect for commission staff and desire to work in, clear partnership on this with them. There are obviously a lot of questions that will need to be answered. And again, that's why we brought in the best folks in the country to help us answer those questions.
And if I can add to what Mark's saying, that's what I meant in terms of like what the structure is, what the reporting structure is, making sure that this body is well informed, making sure that we're continuously coming back in front of you all and letting you all know what the body is doing, what the Housing Commission is doing, and providing those reports to you in whatever manner that you guys see fit, that you want to see those reports.
Yeah. And I see the need again for housing, and I'm just not sure that we have enough answers. The answers to a lot of the questions here today. But thank you so much for the effort. Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Baydun.
I just had to that point that Felicia was alluding to. So let's say we're gonna allocate $1 million from the county to the Housing Commission for any of the projects. You would have to come back in front of us and update us and get our approval. Am I correct? No?
And perhaps some of that can be negotiated, but at this point, no, they would simply report back to us because there is a reporting requirement in the ordinance currently, but that's, I think, a quarterly report or something. But it's not actual approval of which projects go where or who gets what in which community or what developments they pursue. That, at this point, I don't believe would be coming back to this body based on at least the current structure and the way I read state law and the current ordinance.
So if we're gonna team up with the newly created Housing Commission in Melvindale, and we're gonna have a project of building 200 units in Melvindale, are you saying that we don't need to approve that? You like that, don't you? We don't need to approve it?
Well, the Housing Commission under law, they can deed, they can mortgage, they can buy property, they can hire staff. I don't believe they need your approval. Now, whether we try to negotiate some level of coming back to this body, I don't know bureaucratically how that slows down the process, if that messes with HUD, because you got to have a certain separation between county and the Housing Commission.
Yeah.
But I believe the answer to your question is no. This body will not see those projects.
Commissioner Anderson, then Kinlock.
Last thing I have, and I brought up, I appreciate the question from our legal staff, that the communities there's many communities that have their own housing commissions. Some work well, some don't work so well. The question I have is, there's got to be some process by which that is reviewed by someone. I, as far as naming the commissioners right now, and supporting that, I don't really, it sort of feels like putting the cart before the horse, that you don't really have we haven't seen really what that commission will do, then what duties they will have right off the bat, without other things being in place, that's all. But I'd like to say, but I understand the need to have it, but maybe not this quick before we're moving further along with some additional information that's been outlined by our legal staff. But I'm supportive of it in general. I just want to see that we don't make a mistake by rushing too far, too fast, without any guidelines of what they're going to be doing. That's all.
Thank you. It is the beginning of the discussion in analyzing what we need to do it right. Commissioner Kinlock.
Yes. Clearly, they've basically laid out a plan, and much of the function of the commission is dictated by federal laws as well as state laws. The commission has to be separated. Even at the local level, is to be separated. You saw over the years, the city of Detroit had a number of issues with HUD as it relates to the Housing Commission, and a number of communities have had issues in many of our districts where HUD has threatened to shut them down. And so what I'm saying is the initial funding absolutely going to come before this commission. The commission will be able to use its legislative wherewithal to basically talk about how much the commission want to be engaged and how little it wants to be engaged within certain parameters of the law. You also, the most important thing is the housing plan. That's the biggest thing that the commission should want to weigh in on. What's the strategy? That strategy should have to come back here for some discussion before even the full, and that's something that can be worked out through the either ordinance or conversation where the overall housing plan is approved, reviewed and approved through this committee and approved by the commission. And that's really where we want to have our input in. It's like, what is the overarching housing plan? But the implementation of it has to be independent and, you have to have a separation there. But so the key, and then get regular reports as it relates to the actions and activities of the commission. But I think I don't know if you all had conversation, but the overall housing plan and a strategy before it's finally adopted by the housing commission should be reviewed and considered by this commission. That's what my thought would be. I don't know if y'all had that conversation. Yeah.
Yep. So thank you, Commissioner Kinloch. No, and absolutely. And as we said, in terms of the reporting and whatever needs to be done, we will be absolutely doing. And when we're talking about working together in terms of the strategy, that is something also we be making sure we work with you all on and present to you all and make sure that you guys have buy-in on as well as we move forward. There are different communities that you all oversee, different needs from those communities. We want to make sure that our countywide housing strategy and plan addresses needs that are truly that embody the needs of the entire county. And the only way we can do that is making sure that we're conversing and engaging with all of you.
Any other question? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Chair and your staff, and good presentation. And I think when time comes, this presentation should be presented to the full board one time because of the importance of the issue. It's my personal opinion. If the committee agree on, we're not voting on anything today, but it's something for you and the staff to work on. It should be presented to the full board because it involves every city in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, commissions. Thank you, committee.
Madam the clerk, next item.
F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I have none. Next item.
G, public comments.
Anybody from the public like to comment on the, please take the podium and state.
Yes, it's just want to make a correction. So the extra funds for the demolition is coming from Inkster, not Ecorse.
Inkster, okay, good point. Thank you. Okay, so noted. Okay. Anybody from the public like to have a comment? Please take the podium, state your name.
Good morning. Our names are Jill Ferrari and Shannon Morgan. We are owners of Renovaré Robertson Harper Woods. We are the developer of Fraser Square.
Can you come up to the table, please?
Thank you. Once again, Jill Ferrari, my address is 1133 Kensington in Grosse Pointe Park, Michigan. Shannon Morgan, 45265 Brunswick Drive, Canton, Michigan. We are part of the ownership team of Renovaré Robertson Harper Woods. It is the developer of Fraser Square, 71 affordable for sale housing units in Harper Woods. And we had expected to be on your agenda today with our development agreement, but apparently there has been a delay, and we just wanted to encourage all of you to expedite this development and loan agreement of home funds. This is a large 71 unit project. First phase is 16 million in total development costs, and we had received a home award of 1.8 million, and that is the development and loan agreement that we were hoping to seek approval of today. We really do need to close. We were planning on beginning demolition in January. The property is owned by the Grosse Pointe Public School System. That board has a large turnover in members. And so we are really trying to expedite this so that we can begin demolition in January.
And I'll just add, not only we have closed on, we did receive, we were the #1 project in the missing middle funding for MISTA. We have closed on our missing middle gap, and we do have an expenditure deadline that we have to meet with those funds for this project. I will also add that this project is a very good conclusion in light of the last conversation, because we have been working statewide on a new initiative for attainable and affordable housing to bring to Wayne County, that we're working with partners and employers throughout the state, as well as housing commissions, to bring additional down payment assistance and offer new ways to create attainable, affordable, and workforce housing for communities throughout the state. We just are underway in a project that is under construction in the city of Ypsilanti, where we teamed up with their local, with the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, and we were able to bring workforce housing to multiple employers, as well as 7 different employees at the city and the county, including first responders, teachers, in these type of initiatives. So we're really excited to work with Wayne County to broaden these initiatives and bring access, especially in Harper Woods in this community. We're bringing several different lenders and stakeholders to the table to offer new programming to buyers. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to comment?
Just,
Yeah, yes.
I know we don't
Johnson.
respond, but for commissioners' purposes, know that staff received that contract yesterday. So we just got the contract.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, that contract isn't contingent upon a housing commission being in place to approve or not approve, right?
Correct. That's just
Okay.
our home. Yes, that's
Entirely
just home.
different.
Entirely
Okay.
different, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Hi, Stephanie Case from Community Development. Just want to explain what the situation is at this point. So this has, this has been in the works for a while. The first issue we had was anytime you're doing a project that has federal dollars, that there's an environmental issue that has to be addressed. On review of environmental, we found out that this school had an adverse effect if it was demolished, because it's a historical building. The design of the building is historical. So after we received the information from SHPO, the developers had to do a case study, and we had to submit that to the State Preservation Office and to the Advisory Council. We had to get that detail back from them before we can start the agreement. The agreement has taken a significant time back and forth with review. And we just, I think on the 19th, finished the final draft of the agreement. So that's why the commission staff just received the agreement. There was a back and forth. This has been going on for at least, I think, about 6 months of details, going back with the State Preservation Office, going back and forth with the developers. And that's why you just received the agreement recently. But we've been working diligently with the developers, the State Preservation Office, HUD, and our staff to try to make sure we get this agreement to you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? We have anybody online?
No one on Zoom.
Any email?
No emails were received.
Thank you. For the last time, anybody from the public like to comment? Seeing none, we move to the next item.
Adjournment.
So moved.
Motion been made in support, we adjourn.